Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are coming from. We are live again on the ROS Media channel. And today, what Ian and I are going to do is give you a sneak peek into this coming weekend's webinar on May the 30th. But for many people, they might be asking, well, why should I take time out of my Saturday morning when I work all week? Why should I devote time to come on the webinar? Well, number one, the subject matter is going to be incredibly interesting. But number two, let me just read you some feedback from members who attended last Saturday's webinar with myself and with Ian on the 23rd. For example, Zoe said, Ian has given us the absolute blueprints. It's up to us now to do the work. It's so exciting to know this is actual science and math and not theory. I'm forever grateful to Ian for discovering this. Aura said, what a masterpiece of a webinar. Incredible information. Thank you so much. Beryl said, fascinating webinar, Ian. Best I've attended. We've also got Milos, who said, this is absolutely an amazing piece of information. Dax, who said, great presentation, concise and beautifully laid out. John, who said, fantastic presentation, Ian. Very professional, informative, and clearly expanded and explained. We've got Gary, phenomenal information, beautifully delivered with great clarity. Thank you, Ian and the team. Steve, who said, thank you, Ian. Great presentation, clearly laid out data, logically sound, brilliant work. The list goes on and on and on. Fantastic presentation, Ian. True genius. God bless you for bringing this truth to the world. Brilliant presentation, Ian. Thank you very much. I could go on and on and on. If that isn't reason enough for you to attend this Saturday's webinar, then maybe a little sneak peek right now into what we're going to discuss might pique your interest as well. So we're going to be talking about foreign grantor trusts. Why filing a 1099 OID via a foreign grantor trust is the absolute game changer in what we are calling the Clifford Protocol and the Monopoly game changer as our flagship here at the Republic of Old Souls. If this is all new language to you, then stick around because we're going to talk a little bit about that now. Ian's going to give us just a snapshot of what we're going to be covering during the course of the webinar on Saturday, and then do a much bigger deep dive into that on Saturday itself. So I think probably the best place to start here, Ian, would be this global monopoly board that you speak about often. You know, let's start with the big picture. Your research, and you've done a hell of a lot of it, mentions that, you know, since that historical shift in 1933, the economy has been just running as a giant debt-based trust managed behind the scenes by the US Treasury. So for a regular person who sort of just sees numbers on their ATM machine or numbers on the bank account, what does it mean when you say that we are all playing on this commercial monopoly board where real true wealth or real value doesn't actually exist?
Yeah, it's a great deception. It's arguably the biggest deception there is. You know, they've got billions of adults playing a game who actually believe it's real because it feels real and it looks real, and there appears to be real consequences for playing it well. You can have a very luxurious lifestyle and a very enjoyable lifestyle, or you can play it quite badly, or you can be tripped up by it and spend most of your time in anxiety and fear, which of course is what they want in the most elaborate and geniusly put together modern slavery system that you could ever conceive. If you got the brightest minds in the world together and sat them in a room for a week, they would probably not come up with a system as elegant as this to enslave the whole planet. Whilst many believe that it's a fair system, many believe that there is some sort of logic to it, and if you play very well, you deserve to do very well. Many others play very well and don't do very well because there are obstacles that get in their way. And many, of course, and the majority, have no idea it's just a game. The game of Monopoly, as I call it, because that's what Monopoly was introduced to teach us. For those who've got their eyes open, that's what Monopoly was really introduced to do, to show us that we're all playing a game rather than it's real. And it's all being played out on an artificial player board, if you like. Everything on this board is an artificial construct. Companies, trusts, the person, the citizen, the straw man, the governments. Everything on this Monopoly board is artificial. You can't talk to it. You can't take it to dinner. You can't give it a call. It's all artificial. And the living men and women are basically supplying the energy that runs the game through a very clever system of user fruct and a system of enslavement, which brings the living men and women the energy onto the board, the Monopoly board, which is a world trust. It is a trust structure with it all operating in Chapter 11 permanent bankruptcy, with the United States Treasury as the bankruptcy trustee, whose job is to look after the creditors. Well, who are the creditors? The majority of the world population that's over the age of 18 are the creditors to the bankruptcy of the entire Monopoly board. But the creditors don't know that they are creditors in the most part. And those that do know that they're creditors can't figure out how to take advantage of that creditor status, because they don't know how the game is being wired up, unless they come to my webinars, of course. And then they start to realize that there is a pathway to, operating as a creditor and redirecting taxes that the United States Treasury are collecting from the debtors, which is the banks, by the way. The banks in the inverse are not the creditors, they're the debtors, along with everything else on the artificial construct of this Monopoly game or Monopoly board, this world trust. And of course, and what I show people on the webinars is how to redirect the taxes that the payers, the debtors, are paying to the United States Treasury for the benefit of the creditors, but the creditors abandon it all the time because they don't know how to recoup it unless they come to my webinars, and then I explain it all. Or they go to Ecclesia Law Institute and read my technical papers, and one I've just finished, which is a treatise, which is, I think it's about 20 pages, packed full of fact and evidence and technical justification for how the Clifford Protocol works, which is how you recoup taxes, redirect taxes back to their origin, back to the creator, which is the living man woman, but not by the living man woman stepping onto the game board, because they can't. So I break it all down and show you how to do it on the webinar.
So one of the things that you mentioned there is a foreign grantor trust. So, I guess for many people, this concept completely shifts now, doesn't it? How people would see their debts, because most people would believe that, when you go and take out a mortgage or you go and take out a loan or a credit card, that the bank is graciously lending you their money. But you're saying that the banks don't actually lend their own money. Instead, it's your signature as a living human being that creates that value, and the banks create credit ex nihilo, out of nothing. So if our signature is the actual power source of these funds that are created, and everybody's being hoodwinked into thinking that that's not the case, it's the banks that are actually lending you the money, but you have the ability to be able to redirect the taxes that have been paid going back to the age of 18. So for many people who are your age, my age, in their late 50s, early 60s, whatever it may be, that's 30, 40 years worth of potential taxes that have been paid throughout their lifetime, throughout working hard all that time, that they have a right to have back. But there's a way of doing it. There's the wrong way of doing it, which we've spoken about before, and that many people, if they if they latch on to this phrase of a 1099 OID and you go and do some Google truthing, I'm sure you'll find that Google's response to that will not be what we're talking about. It will be steer clear from doing that. You need to seek legal advice. You're going to get yourself in an awful lot of trouble. You might even end up with a fine, or worse still, imprisonment. And that would put a lot of people off. But you talk about this foreign grantor trust being the game changer. So let's talk a little bit about that. As far as the actual report that you've put out, people who've looked into this, reclaiming their signature credit through a 1099 OID, but doing it in the wrong way, have been hit with brick walls, have been hit with fines, possibly imprisonment as well. But you've discovered that the missing puzzle piece, and I remember when you discovered this, it was a while ago now, wasn't it? I think it was towards the end of 2024, that you are now shifting away from domestic filings and instead using a foreign grantor trust. So for the listeners, and I'm trying to think of this from the listener's perspective, so that people could understand, why does moving those affairs into a foreign trust structure, a foreign grantor trust, why does that bypass all of these potential pitfalls and traps that people are coming up against by trying to do it themselves in the wrong way?
Without it, everything else that makes up the entire Clifford protocol, the redirection of taxes, just doesn't work. You see, there has to be a separation between the living soul and the birth certificate construct, and there has to be a player piece on the monopoly board that is actually filing 1099 OID that has the credentials to become what's known as the holder in due course, that actually can operate as a nominee for the living soul. You see, what's going on is on the monopoly board, the banks are operating as nominees, as fiduciaries for the living soul or the living souls. And the living soul can't step on the monopoly board. So the banks get to use the signature credit energy as nominees. They have to pay tax as nominees to use the signature credit on the monopoly board. They hypothecate it, means that they multiply it up. They make more and more profit on the monopoly board, which is all negative, but on the monopoly board, a negative can be used with great advantage for those who think that they're wealthy. They're actually in debt, but you can make debt work for you, as Donald Trump knows, and as Robert Kiyosaki knows, who's the rich dad poor dad guy. Debt is actually, can be used to great advantage. Well, the whole monopoly board's in debt. There's no credit on the monopoly board, or the credit's off the board. It's all been abandoned basically by the living soul. So the way that the grantor trust is the game changer, or the why is the game changer, is because you can sit it on the monopoly board and it becomes a nominee for the true creditor, which is the living soul, who's not ever going to be on the board. So it operates like a bank in many ways, and you control it. And as soon as the foreign grantor trust files 1099 OID, it becomes the holder in due course, which is, without that standing, it could not receive the tax redirection, because it has no standing to receive it. But after it's filed 1099 OID and identified the securities that have been put on the board with the signatures in the past, bank payments, mortgages, loans, credit cards, if it can identify those individual securities and quote them and make sure that there's enough taxes have been paid by the current nominees, which is the banks, for using those securities, if it can identify all that, which of course the Clifford Protocol does, then it can stand on the monopoly board as the holder in due course and have a lawful entitlement to the redirection of taxes. for the benefit of the living soul who never steps on the monopoly board. So there's a way on the board, which is through the birth certificate construct and through the banks as nominees who put the credit on the board. And then there's a way of taking it back off the board, which is through another nominee, which is the foreign grantor trust, that operates just like a bank does as a nominee, but critically with the 1099 OID filing, it becomes the holder in due course. And that is the bottom line, really, is who is the holder in due course. The banks perceived to be the holder in due course, but they never actually were. The grantor trust, foreign grantor trust, is the holder in due course because it files 1099 OID, and the true beneficiary, the creator and the originator of the signature credit, is its beneficiary. So it's got all the credentials.
Absolutely amazing. I think if you want to attend this Saturday's masterclass, then here would be your immediate steps. I mean, just think about this for a second. If this is you, if you have ever felt like there was a hidden ledger to your life, then you were right. You are the creator of the value in the system that we live in the economy that we live in. And it's time to stop acting like a debtor. You mentioned a moment ago, Ian, that people can play this game of Monopoly either at pro level or they can play it as a pauper. And the vast majority of people don't understand the rules, haven't probably read the real rule book on how this works. And they're stressed, they're anxious, they're in debt, the debt that they think they're in, when in reality, it doesn't need to be that way. You can start living your life as a creditor. You can remove that anxiety. You can wake up every morning with some peace and some serenity behind you, as opposed to nervousness, anxiousness, and all these other things and these emotions that maybe you are feeling right now, and start living a life with your family that you deserve to live. So if you want to know more about that, let me just say this. I mean, I think that this is going to be an incredible kind of look behind the veil that people have never had the opportunity to look at. But it requires action. It requires execution. So on Saturday, when you do this deep dive, Ian, into the Foreign Grantor Trust and the Clifford Protocol and why that works, and we frame this in an actual flagship package of protocols that we call the Monopoly Game Changer, because that's exactly what it is. If people attend the webinar, what could they expect to walk away with this weekend? Why is it so critical that they don't delay learning this?
Well, I mean, to me, because of the way my brain's wired up, I think I have to understand things. I can't just believe something is true unless I've actually looked into it. I can't believe that any particular process might work unless I understand how it works and why it works. And that's really what I break down in my webinars. I do the what is it, I do the how does it work, and then I do the why does it work. I do all three, and I don't base it on theories or ideologies or wishful thinking. I base it on the facts, and then I back it up with research papers which justify it on every single level. And one I've just written and published only just today is the treatise on the redirection of taxes. I can be quite bold to say that there is no other paper on the planet that comes anywhere close to it, because I've had a look. And there are papers that touch on some of the subjects in that treatise, but to bring it all together in one paper is it doesn't exist. It's unique. And that's because I've been studying it for a long time, and I'm tenacious. If it's something I don't understand, it doesn't make sense, then I keep digging down. I keep digging into it until I get it. Because I know that the goal is to help millions of people, or certainly hundreds of thousands. Arguably, it could be millions with all their family and all the relatives and everything else. So that's what drives me on, because I can see we can use their system of modern slavery and reverse it and take advantage of it lawfully to free us from their game. But only those that want to wake up to the reality of how the game works. And that's never going to be everybody on the Monopoly board, because there's allegedly there's billions. There's arguably different numbers of billions depending on who you ask. But this is an opportunity for a very small percentage of the world population, a tiny percentage of the world population. Those that want to come and expose themselves to the truth about how the modern slavery system works and how you can break free from it. That's what my webinars really, that's the ultimate goal. And then to set up our own parallel, our own parallel infrastructure, freedom nation is what is the driving force behind it all. But because I come from a professional background, and I used to have very high net worth clients. You can't just say to high net worth people, yeah, do A, B, and C, and it'll all be good for you. Either they or their advisors would say, justify it. Does it work? Can we see the research? So I got into the discipline of proving what I was recommending to be real, to be factual, to have substance. It's a good practice, rather than just say, believe me because I've done the research and I want you to believe me. I actually show you all the research. You can go and look into it yourself if you want. And that I believe is very important, because I don't want anybody just believing me because I might sound like a nice sort of guy. I want them to believe it because they can look at the research. They can actually look at the technical research and they can triangulate it themselves. They're going to come up with pushbacks from AI. They're going to come up with pushbacks from the so-called professionals, and that is because those that control the Monopoly board don't want you to know what's in my treatise. They just don't want you to know it because they want slavery. So if you've ever watched the movie The Great Escape, which I've watched a number of times, some of the inmates didn't actually want to break out. They were quite happy there. They were quite happy there. And there was a few that were prepared to go and dig tunnels. They were prepared to take that risk, if you like, of breaking free. And they found a way of doing it. And that's not for everyone. But if you really want to break free of the modern slavery system, which is debt-based and based on fear mostly, then that's what my webinars are there to show you, is how to do it and why it works.
Well, we would love to see you there. If you would like to register for the webinar this Saturday, you can go here to roswebinars.is and you can register there for free. We only have 1,000 seats. And this, I can assure you, is a very popular subject. Why would it not be? So if you are interested, go to roswebinars.is. You can register for this coming Saturday's webinar. It is at 10 a.m. UK time on the 30th of May. Ian's going to do a deep dive on signature credit recoupment, but in particular, the right way to do that. Why is using a 98 foreign grantor trust the game changer in this entire scenario? All the proof's going to be there. All the backing's going to be there. If you want technical, you can go to ecclesialaw.is as well, and you'll find all of Ian's reports on the website there to do with recoupment and to do with foreign grantor trusts and to do with the protocols that he has orchestrated as well. So really hope that you can join us on Saturday. And if you are already a member here, then please invite anybody that you feel would benefit from this material. We would love to see other people there as well. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed the preview as much as we have. Looking forward to Ian digging into that in more detail on Saturday. And we hope to see you there 10 a.m. sharp. Grab one of those 1,000 seats while you can, and we'll break it all down for you. Talk to you soon.
Bye for now.